Tremos tus saludos de la iglesia in Papalote. Some of you guys are really impressed, thinking I'm bilingual. I am not. That just said, we bring you greetings from the church in Papalote. We're excited to be able to talk about the efforts that our congregation has put forth for this mission trip. But before I go that way, we have some visitors with us that we should introduce. We have one of our other missionaries that we support, Ray Dennis, sitting in the back. He is a missionary in Baja Mexico. Him and his lovely wife. He understood everything. That's good. And I got it all right? Google Translate. Is Marcella with you? Okay. All right. And then his dad, a longtime evangelist in the area, Carol Dennis, is back visiting with us. Been a long time out here, him and his wife Dottie. I always enjoyed Carol Dennis when he got up and spoke, because everything that he spoke, every sermon had notes about evangelism, to go out and to be an evangelist, everything, every time. Always had that, and that's what he was. He was our evangelist in the area. I guess him and Dottie moved back to Texas, 8-9 years ago, something like that? Something like that. Anyway, good to see you again. And then Randy Sprague, good that you're here with us too. I haven't seen you in a long time. Anyway, so Baja trip. We spent a lot of time planning for this trip, a lot of time praying for this trip. This came from Neil and Belinda as they worked with a congregation in Monrovia and kind of started planting seeds about missions out here. And we'd just been talking probably over a year and a half, just about little pieces here and there about this. It had Neil on fire about missions in his background, and God used Neil and got me on fire too. So I thank you for that. It was a fantastic trip. It started out, we sent, well, let's pray first. Will you bow with me? Almighty Father in heaven, Lord, we come before you, Father, just glorifying your holy name, Father, grateful that you love us, grateful that you're mindful of us. Most importantly, Father, we're grateful for your Son. We know that we would not be meeting together. There would be no need for us to be together tonight if it was not for your Son, if it was not for the fact that our sins can be forgiven, the fact that you are mindful of us, the fact that salvation came to Gentiles, Father. We're eternally grateful. We love you, Father, and we thank you for the time and the blessings that you've given us to go on this trip to Baja. Father, we know that your name was glorified, not of your Son. We pray we brought honor and praise to you and loving our brethren down there. Father, we pray that we get many more opportunities to do this type of thing, Father, as you've called us in your scripture, Father, to reach out, whether that's in this local area of Puyallup to those who are outside of these walls that need to hear the message of your Son, or halfway across the world, whatever it may be, Father. We know you need people to hear the gospel message of your Son, and you've given that duty to us. We love you and thank you, Father, and it's in your Son's holy name we pray. Amen. Stand over by the mic is what you're saying? Thanks. Can you hear me now? Hello, hello. Oh, there you go. Anyway, starting off this trip, we sent 6 people. Leslie and I were 2 of them. Neil and Belinda were 2. Kim from Springbrook, Harley with us on what we called the advance team. And we set out to kind of just get supplies ready, get things bought and procured, all the stuff we were going to need before the main team came down. And the trip started out great. We were all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at SeaTac real early. Half of us didn't have coffee yet, half of us did. But the excitement was there for the trip to start out. We get down to San Diego, perfect flight. We get picked up from our contact from Baja Missions, had the van there. Perfect, get across the border. We get in to start getting supplies, and this is where things took a turn. There's a statement about Mexico, and I don't think this is derogatory, but it's called Flexico, Mexico. Have you heard that, Javi? You got to be flexible in Mexico because there's a different pace, there's a different speed. They may or may not have what you may be looking for, so you just pivot and you go to something else. And so we learned that fact as we met up in a big Costco down there. Alfonso and Angie, who you'll see a picture of here shortly, drove a van up, and we're loading supplies in a couple of vans, but they drove up to meet us, and we had a couple of missions to go out, one to buy the food, and then we were going to buy some other supplies for another congregation that was getting help, some tables and things like that. So there was, a bunch of us walking around Costco with a bunch of carts, reading stuff in Spanish and trying to get stuff picked out. Neil and I took off and went and tried to find tables and folding tables, and you'd think the folding tables, you just have those there, but that's not the case. And then trying to explain to somebody who doesn't speak English, we're looking for folding tables, was a whole other fiasco. At one point, Neil and I both heard something about gringos across the loudspeaker in the store. We're like, it was good. We ended up getting helped, and we made it through it. The next challenge came with American credit cards that haven't been used in Mexico at one point or another, being here and then being declined and declined and declined, and then calling and then declined. Meanwhile, with Neil using his credit card, well, Belinda's still at Costco using her credit card, so his bank's going, hey, there's fraud going on here. And we were sweating. We were expecting to be down in Papalote probably about 4 o'clock time frame, and it was still a 3.5-hour bus ride or 3.5-hour van ride from Ensenada down to Papalote. We ended up rolling in somewhere 11:30ish at night. It took a long time, and there was construction probably almost the whole way. Neil drove one van, and then Alfonso and Angie drove the other van. So then we're sitting there probably about 10 o'clock at night, making our way down there, and Neil and I start thinking, what are we going to do with all this food? We were expecting to be into the hotel and get to some refrigerators for this food. What are we going to do now? Well, on the property of Old Mill, there's a restaurant there, so fortunately, Neil had faith that the owner was just going to let us bring our food on into their walk-in coolers and freezers, and thank God above, that's what happened. That some people stayed there for us, waiting for us, and hey, you guys are here, here's your rooms, and we were like, can we use the fridges? They're like, yeah, bring in anything you want. So everything worked out like it always does with God, right? We can think, oh man, this is going to be a disaster, and he turns it into sunshine, turns it into lemonade. So what we got is, and thanks to Madison, am I pointing at Madison? Madison right there. She helped me with these, the PowerPoint and these slides. You're going to notice nice uniform pictures and slides, and then ones that seem out of place. Those are mine. I did not know what she did. I added a few more extra. So we'll just go through these slides and talk. If you have questions, please speak up. There are many folks here tonight, Neil and Belinda, the Bertrams, the Niswangers, my sister here. Yeah, Sandra. I knew that. Anyway, ask any of us about our time there, and I'm sure everybody would be glad to talk about it. Kind of the mission verse that we went on in this planning and what we were trying to do comes out of Thessalonians. I'm going to read from 1 Thessalonians 2, and this is where Paul's kind of explaining the conduct that they had in coming to the Thessalonians and what they were doing. And that we came and we did our own work. We didn't ask you to support us in any way. But he says in verse 11 down here, what did he say? He said, as you know how we exhorted and comforted and charged every one of you as a father does his own children. And that was our mission, to go down and to comfort, to encourage our brothers and sisters down there to keep on with the race, to keep in the faith, to keep their heads and their face and their eyes pointed towards Christ, to implore them to stick it out. I went down, I learned a lot. I don't know about anybody else, but before I went down there, I was thinking, all these poor folks down here, right? They need our help. We need to go down there and help them. And it was a big eye-opener when I got down there that they were probably looking at us poor Americans and going, they need to escape the stuff, all the bad stuff that's happening in the U.S., right? They weren't thinking anything about we don't have dirt, or we don't have concrete roads, right? It's life to them. They're smiling, the kids are happy and running around and playing games, and the parents are, meeting and greeting, and just like life here. So I got changed from that aspect, that I was probably more blessed than they were, just having this opportunity to do this. So we got down there Friday, the advanced team, Thursday night actually. Friday morning, we're getting ready, getting set up. The rest of the team came in Saturday on the bus, and I think you all got there probably around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock with the traffic. I think we had some pork chops ready and going, waiting for y'all. About 8 o'clock. So they got in late Saturday. Sunday, excuse me, was going to be our first time with the congregation. So we were going to meet up with them and have worship with them and class with them. And then we were going to be putting on a barbecue for the congregation. So here's some pictures of our time. You can see Graham's head back there playing with the baby in front of him. But they've got a really nice auditorium there. And their service runs just like our service. Got some singing, got some praying, got some loving on, hearing the word, and their classes. Up on the picture to the bottom right there, you can see just before the barbecue started, we went up there just to greet them, just as the mission team up there. And Neil was up there talking, and we had a translator helping up there, myself and Brian and an elder from Monrovia. Graham was up there, and we're just up there to say hello, to introduce ourselves, and kind of set up the week that was upcoming. Here's the barbecue we were doing. We bought them a gas grill, by the way. They didn't have a gas grill. They got an outdoor cooking area, but when they have things like this where they bring the community in, and they're trying to outreach out there, they could use more cooking area. So we bought them this gas grill, and they thank you for it. They thank us for it. We did about 200 burgers that day, serving them and their kids. And then we ate as well too. You see the kids over there. Neil is he does a lot of things, but one of his hobbies is leatherworking. So he'd been thinking a long time about what other kind of skills can we help bring to these folks to where they can learn and then reproduce this skill and make some wares and sell them. So Neil brought down all of his tools and a bunch of leather samples, and he taught some leatherworking classes over there. That's not what I wanted to do. Up there, Neil's teaching some classes. Did that gal ever finish hers? You said you could give her those tools if she finished that one. Nice. So yeah, there was about 10 people, I guess about 10 people around trying to learn this woodworking, and through time, I guess 5 people ended up staying there that were really interested in how to get this done. So that came over really well. Sunday night, we had a dinner at the Eucalypto. So this is the restaurant on the premises of the Old Mill Hotel where the team stayed. This is also in the back is the kitchen where we got to store our food. But we had a big team dinner. We ended up as a group singing "I Love You with the Love of the Lord" in Spanish to the crew there that were serving us, because they were fantastic and took care of us, made really good food. The owner of the hotel and the Eucalypto, he's one of the owners there, he personally cooked us meals that night. So it was just a fantastic night. And that's the team, Monrovia and Baja. Every night afterwards, we had a devotional. So this is kind of an open air, outdoor area. It's covered roof, but sides are open. Nice little rock place in there with the fire pit. Every night we'd meet afterwards and go in there, sing a couple songs, kind of talk about the day, talk about what was upcoming the next day, and just kind of be with one another, develop stronger relationships with our team, but also with the Monrovia team, and just spend some time together. But it's a nice area. It's kind of tranquil out there. If you see that that area of Baja down there'll be some pictures I think coming up that kind of show it, but it's just kind of a desolate, arid area, dirt, sticks, and this is just kind of a little oasis in the middle of that. Good little kind of refresh area. Our own Trent did one of the devos one night and did a very fine job. The other devos were handled by one of the elders that went from Monrovia. His name's Jeff. Monday was start of the VBS day and work day. So after breakfast, we're all gathering up and preparing to head out and go over there. Baja Missions van. How we had this working out is Monrovia took care of kind of the VBS program itself, coming up with the curriculum and what they wanted to do. Belinda managed a team with Debbie on feeding everybody in the kitchen. Tom managed all of our construction projects, so he kind of managed putting this amount of people on this job and this amount of people on this job, and we rolled at that route. I kind of played designated hitter to go buy supplies, same with Neil, and bring back what was needed and then jump in on a job. Kitchen crew getting VBS ready. The ladies had this dialed down to a science. I mean, what was the total count of kids? Do you guys remember? I thought we were like in the 80s. 72 kids. There'll be a ton of them. There's a picture coming up which shows a bunch of them in an auditorium, but to have the snacks lined up, and they did basically everything in this. This is the little outdoor kitchen that they have out there on the property of the church building. Little area there, but they did all the most of the preparation from this spot here. Monday morning, the construction started. You can see Trent getting all GQ in the picture. I think that's why Madison chose that one, right? So he's getting all GQ we built a playground for the kids. There was an existing one that was getting dilapidated, didn't have a roof. So we bought them another playground and then built that. So there was Graham, Trent, Shane, and Jacob that basically handled the construction of that. You can see that going up. I'm holding up the wood right there because it might fall off or go somewhere. So I was very important in that picture there. But actually, this little area here to your right, I got to remember people are on the line. So the picture on the right, that's right at the door where kids and people come up and grab food from that overhead window that came up there. Well, there's about a 3-foot drop off that goes down into the sand in the playground, and the kids love to get a running start and just boom, jump off that thing and bail off into the sand. Well, sometimes there's some elderly folks waiting to get some food or some coffee or something, and they can knock into the elderly folks, and then they both go for a ride off of that little 3-foot thing there. So Alfonso really wanted a wall put up there, so that can no longer happen. So that's the beginning of the wall, and I'm deep in thought about that for Tom. VBS, I mean, look at the faces of these kids. VBS started out, I mean, we had, I don't know how many things as sidewalk chalk, and that was graffiti everywhere. But yeah, just a ton of kids, all happy and joyful, playing. VBS, in my mind, I mean, it went off without a hitch. You heard kids cheering and hooting and hollering and just having fun. You'd sit back and watch them. Some of the kids had their parents there, their mothers there. They had a couple of vans. Baja Missions had a couple of vans that went out and grabbed kids from the neighborhood and from a little bit further away and brought them there too. But there were quite a few of the mothers or grandmothers that sat there with us and just kind of watched their kids going through these events. Tuesday construction, you can see in the middle there, you can see the wall getting a little bit further done, and what he wanted was a railing so kids can't run through, but then a little platform off of it so people could stand there and eat as well. As Alfonso said, that's going to be his coffee position, so his coffee cup can go right there and watch the kids. And it's just about looking over the playground and keeping the kids safe. If you can see behind Tom there's this post and then that little block wall. So that is now the only way in and out of the playground, just to keep the kids safe and off of the street. There's a little dirt road out front where the vans are to keep them safe. On this picture on the left, obviously Graham and Trent. This is Jacob from Monrovia. He's probably, well, he kept wanting to drive the bus, but he doesn't have a license, so he's got to be 15 or 14, whatever he is. 14? So he's a crack up, good kid. The guy behind him, that's Shane. We learned a lot about Shane. He was kind of a last minute addition that wanted to join the team and was able to go. Super impressed by that cat. He jumped right in. And I don't know how this came up, but he was the one that kept yelling, "Super!" And I think the story goes he heard somebody saying something, and he thought that's what they said, so he just kept saying that. And nobody knows what it means, but I think Sandra's got that for her ringtone now. So Shane jumped in. He jumped in playing with the kids, just a super tender-hearted guy. He was our guy that made a fire every night at the devotionals. You'll see a picture later. He's got an affinity for animals, and then he helped out wherever was needed. Picture on the right-hand side, that is Alfonso here, and that is Jason, and they're mixing concrete because one of the other projects we were doing is we were putting, this is just to the left of where this picture stops is the gate rolls back here, and this is where vans could come in or you get out to the street. Obviously, I don't know how to use this thing. But what Alfonso wanted us to do was put a chain link fence in here to keep that playground area kind of cordoned off so kids can't jump out and then jump out an open gate or whatever the case may be. So they're mixing concrete and setting the poles for us on that Tuesday morning. You can see the outcome of the playground getting done here, getting all set up. We had a big pile of sand, so we resurfaced all the sand area. That one playground had been used for years and years, so the kids on the swings created these big V trenches, and we just kind of regraded everything and got everything out. One of the other projects, this is Jeff, one of the elders from Monrovia. One of the other projects was repainting this block wall that went around the property there. And that's in the heat of the day. And you know, it was only 82 degrees, 84 degrees maybe at the hottest, but down there closer to the equator, it was surprising. In the morning, you know, you get up about 6, 7, whatever, have some coffee, have some breakfast that the ladies had ready, and it's doable, it's manageable. You're like, oh, this is nice, but like 9:30 or 10 o'clock, somebody flipped that switch and that radiant heat comes on you. And they're out there painting in that. So that was fun. We just had to make sure everybody stayed hydrated and everybody was good. I was talking about Shane having an affinity for animals. So this dog here, did the dog have a name? Anybody know? He was like a stray that just kind of came and knew a church was there and knew sometimes there was food there, I guess. So he'd come around, was real skinny. I think the night before that he had got hit by a car. So he was dragging a leg, but Shane took pity on the thing because he was a stray. So he was, in that picture, he's picking ticks off the dog and putting them in a little cup, and because just that's what he does. He loves animals. So, and I don't know how many hamburgers we fed him. Yeah. Yeah. And that was just off the head. Yeah, it was wild. So many dogs around going down the neighborhoods. More pictures of the crew. Debbie's cooking some dogs there on the right on the grill. We brought it back inside. All the snacks were hot dogs. I should probably say that. It wasn't that poor dog, it was hot dogs that we bought at Costco. The snacks here that they made had something to do with the Bible classes that were going on. So we were in charge of obviously the food that the ladies took charge of, but also the VBS snacks and all that was under our purview. And then games, as you'll see, for VBS was under Puyallups' purview as well. But yeah, I think these in the middle picture, I think these were supposed to represent like graves or something because there was some crushed up Oreos to represent dirt and some gummy worms for the worms, and I wanted one, but I didn't get one. BBS. Oops. That first picture, that is, if you have not met her, that is Carly, Neil and Belinda's daughter. She's from, or living in Tennessee, from here, but living in Tennessee. I'm horrible with names, so I don't remember her name, from Monrovia, obviously, but just loving on the kids and playing with the kids. It was so special to see. There's a gal in here, Callie, who had been there a couple of times, and there were some girls that remembered Callie coming back and just like a big sister ran up to her and just glommed on her. It was tear jerking, actually. But Leslie's there helping with some crafts and that classroom. One of the other projects that we had was repainting that classroom in the third picture there on the right. Darn it. Third picture there on the right, and then the main auditorium in their building. And this was a last minute ad, Flexico, that they wanted this done, but VBS was using all these classes while we were doing this. So we were like, how are we going to accomplish this? So they'd have VBS, and it was over about 1:30, and that's when the buses were taking all the kids back. So then we had a crew rotate in and then start masking. Well, one day masked off everything. So you'll see some pictures where you can still see the masking in there. And then we'd paint a wall and then get it all done. Get in the next morning, take it down, and then VBS would go. We'd wait for it to be over, and then we come into the second wall. But we managed our way through it. That's the auditorium there on the picture on the left. And I think that's Callie up there. Speaks real fluent Spanish. And she was one of the ones that few of the girls came up and just like a bigger sister and reunion again. But yeah, they decorated this place. It's a beautiful spot in there. Stone tile on the floor, nice wood for the ceiling and the rafters. Just a nice area. Everybody getting involved. So one of the big things I assume one of the big things in Mexico or that part of the area is everybody's got their specialty. I like to grill, right? So I like to say I make good steaks. I can make some good ribs. I can do this, blah, 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 whatever. For them, it's, especially for Alfonso, he's a master of fish tacos. And that's one of my all-time favorites, right? So he came out and cooked fish tacos for the whole group. Right outside at the hotel we were at, there's a little spot for him. So in the middle there, you can see that's obviously Alfonso on the left and his sweet wife Angie on the right. And they came out and fed us. I think we supplied some pico de gallo and some other things for her, but they supplied the fish and the cooking and the tortillas. And it was just a beautiful night, and they were super good. Shane, by the way, that one cat, he was on a trial vegan. He was trying it out. He had done carnivore just before that, but he was a vegan. So Alfonso heard about that, went and got like some zucchini and cut it up and then made some zucchini tacos for him. So just special that he thought about everybody and made sure everybody was good. Tom? Yeah. Yeah. So for those online, Tom was talking about Angie, Alfonso's wife, that very subdued, but if you're paying attention, she talks some zingers. We were asking her about evangelism out in that area and how it goes for them as evangelists and as missionaries in that congregation. And she was like, you want me to be honest? And we're like, yeah, be honest. She's like, oh, sometimes I get mad. We're like, okay, all right, that works. But yeah, she's a sweetheart. I told the story of that dinner that we had last year for the missions overall, and we kind of went through all the missionaries. Ray made a video for us. Everybody made a video for us. I told the story about Alfonso and Angie. Alfonso's got a brother Angie's got a sister, and they married each other. And he's a missionary preacher in Colinet. Is that where they're out of? Yeah, Colinet. So it's funny to see them next to each other. And then we arranged for some home visits. So we did a thing what's called a bucket brigade, where we went and bought buckets, and then we went and bought food. And the food consisted of pinto beans, consisted of rice, consisted of some manteca lard, kind of the staples for the area. I think did we get masa? Okay, so I guess we got masa too. And then we handed out these buckets on these home visits we did. We also bought buckets and then did some cleaning supplies, some sanitization stuff. So every time we went out to visit a couple in a home that Alfonso set all these up, we also offered these gifts for them too. And you can see here, the first picture on the left, that's a turkey, and he's holding it. So there were some people who weren't so affectionate towards the turkey coming around, because it had started strutting and checking out who's in the yard. So it was funny. Leslie didn't like that a bit, but that was a great couple there. She asked for some prayers while we were there. A lot of these visits, the information that came up and the needs and the prayers was a bit heart-wrenching, but an absolute blessing to go and meet and see, and just see who God sent us to see. And again, I'm horrible with names. Otherwise, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's Marta, and that's, but I can't do that. Picture on the right there, when I was talking about getting a picture of what the area kind of looks like. It's arid, kind of just dirt is what you see, and sticks. I mean, that's a lot of what the area looks like out there. I didn't go on all the visits. Neil brought a group one day out. I brought a group one day, and then somebody else drove. One of our translators drove a group another day, but there was a story that came back on the third day that our group went out to visit with this family, and this 10-year-old girl or something was there. I think you guys might have went on this one. 10-year-old girl was, and correct me if I'm wrong, 10-year-old girl was there saying hellos and greetings, and then all of a sudden she's gone. She's gone for like 10 minutes. And then some people were wondering, well, where'd she go, right? She comes back and she's got like some pop. She ran to the store and bought some Fresca or something for the visiting Americans, something that they probably wouldn't normally have in their refrigerator because of the money, right? They need money for water and for food and the staples. But she took off and ran and got soda so that they would have something to offer the visiting Americans. It's just, that hit me. Everybody's got animals. This gal here on the left, I think her name was Marta. Is that right, Neil? You remember? Oh, she was, I was right. Okay, I don't remember her name. I know I said the wrong name when I offered a prayer up. But when Neil and I, when you guys sent us down there in November to go check this out and kind of get our dates, she was one of the places that we visited. She's kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of a neighborhood mom. So these little shack areas that you would call little neighborhoods, 10, 12, 7, 8, 9 little hooches or whatever, set up together. There's usually somebody like her in there that kind of manages care and manages making sure the younger men get their clothes washed to get out to the fields, and does those extra things that a parent would do for children to make sure they're taken care of. And that was her role. It's Callie next to her, but where they're standing out there, that's where she cooks out there. She's got this little wood stove out there and little cut down branches and made this little tarp roof, and that's where she does all of her cooking, makes hundreds of tortillas out there. And I offered her money for a class next year when we go to make tortillas. But when we went, we all bought 200 Bibles to bring down there with us. So when we visited her, we gave her one while we were there, and then she's like, I got 4 people that I have in mind right now, so we went and grabbed more, and she's delivering the Bibles out to the 4 people that she has care and concern over. So fantastic lady. She had been battling I think she was feeling better, but she had been sick for a while at that point in that picture, and just kind of, hopefully she didn't pull herself out of bed for this visit. That was another thing. It was just amazing to me. There were people, the dollars per day that are made down there isn't like what the dollars per day are made up here in the US. And I don't know about how many houses, but a lot of the houses, they took the day off of work to greet us. They skipped getting that money in that day that they would use for food or for water, whatever, to greet the Americans that come in. That hit me too. It's like, wow, amazing. And the middle picture here in the back, that's Sydney too. So this gentleman is Pamphilo. He was one of our translators that we had with us. And then the gal next to him is Sydney. Sydney's from Alabama, studying to be, she's in college, going to be a lawyer. And this was kind of her, I don't mean this to sound bad, but this was her, mission work to have on the resume as she goes to look for that law firm that's going to hire her. But she's a Christian, comes from a Church of Christ in Alabama. So I asked her if she was going to come back again, and she was like, probably not 2024, because she's going to be deep in class and working towards graduation, but her intent was to come back. Her and Pamphilo became buds and only friends from that respect, because there was there's a clinic on site. I don't know if you all heard this. There's a clinic on site, and they've got a new dentist that started there, where the new dentist was single, and there was some little texting going on. What nickname did we end up with her? What nickname did you give her, Neil? Duncan. Yeah. We started calling her Duncan for some reason, and her name is Sydney. And then Duncan just stuck, so she was Duncan. The hospitality, though, was just over the top. Yeah, this was the last group of visits. She's the one that ran to the store. And cups. Wow. What a sweetheart. Construction crew getting back at it. So the days that we had there, Sunday was all about the congregation and worship, the barbecue, dinner that night, and then our actual mission days, I guess you would say, was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because Thursday we were heading back up towards Ensenada. So the 3 days is really when all the work, all the BBS, and all the construction projects got to get done. Tom's a state worker. You can see him leaning there. Just kidding. Graham's there. People were talking about, well, what about this little gap there? And it's like, that's not for us. That's where they wanted the last post, so that's where we set it. Right about at his feet there, y'all know what fire ants are? Red little ouches, yeah. We really made a nest mad right there digging, and they were all over, so they were out sprinkling poison and trying to get them and doing the fire ant dance to crush them. And yeah, so we put up a 6-foot chain link fence around there. Another shot of the playground. This was the existing playground here on the left. You can see that Tom got some new boards cut to put a roof on it, because it didn't have a roof on it. And that really strengthened up that that structure from going side to side. Wasn't a permitted process, I'll tell you that. Middle picture there, I guess I'm a state worker too, because I'm just leaning. But you can see the kids lining up to catch the bus. We made a little bit of a calculated error. I'm glad Ron Dagley's not here. He owns a fencing company, so if he's seen what we did with this fence, he'd probably get us. But you can see the top of the fabric or the chain link ends here, and then here's the top rail. So we had the space there, needed to figure out what to do with it. So Trent and his muscles, we started wrapping some baling wire around that thing to to close that, and we got it done. So on the right, it's finished, right? It looks good. Kitchen crew finishing up Wednesday. This is what it looked like. All those plates for the kids, 72 kids or whatever it was. Belinda's out there handing them out because it was just an assembly line. They'd step up and it's bing, bing, bang, and they're off and they're out eating. Wednesday was also game day, so Kim Olmsted from Springbrook managed the games and came up with what we were going to do. So we had all kinds of games. I seen the sponge game out there, you know, the sponge game where and it's a relay race. So you take a sponge, fill it with water, and you squeeze it out, and you got to fill this bowl, and you go back and forth. I seen them running that. Had the beanbag toss through the clown's mouth over here. All kinds of things going on, and kids were just hooping and hollering and having a great time. I put this picture on the left because I assumed my wife was going to be here. One of the days she came up to me and was like, "Oh, there's this baby over there. I want to hold him so bad." And then she's holding him. So I went over to her and said, "Hey, give that baby back." And she didn't. So the story is that baby there was a visitor who invited a visitor, and that baby is that visitor's visitor, and came over and said, I heard you wanted to hold my baby, and handed Leslie the baby. So she was in cloud nine, but I expected her to be here to say, "Hey, give that baby back." This picture over here to the right, so when they got the construction done, that corkscrew slide, kids lined up. I mean, there was probably 25 kids lined up waiting to go down that thing. In the middle there's a little chain link, little gangway up there. I mean, they were lined up through that and outside. Trent was the first one to go down this thing. I thought he was going to get stuck in the thing. He came out kind of upside down and backwards from the first time, but it worked out. It held up, so very nice. More games. This little cutie on the right, I mean, just love rolling around on the ground. So it was a great picture. Wednesday night, we had dinner out, and I forget the name of this place. Another little oasis, kind of nice restaurant out in the middle. It was in the middle of some ag fields. I don't know what they were growing over there, but that had papalote, the preachers from Papalote, Angie and Alfonso. They don't show, oh, they're at the other end of the table. There's a couple of missionaries from Mayfield congregation that decided they were giving up their life in the U.S. Stephen and Amanda decided they were giving up their life in the U.S. and they were going to go down and be missionaries full time. So they joined us for dinner. You can see him in the first pictures. That's Stephen there. I think that's Amanda right next to him, but cool story there. They went down and had to take 6 or 8 weeks of classes to learn Spanish to get into it, and they were a tremendous help for us while we were down there as well. He's currently doing a lot of work out at Camp Baja as they've come working towards completion on that. But that was a good night as well. Good night of fellowship. After that dinner we had, Alfonso came to me and said, "Hey, sometimes I have," and he said this in Spanish, "sometimes I have good ideas. I think tonight after dinner we should go out to Camp Baja and you guys can have your devotional time around a fire out there." So I was like, "Hey, that's a great idea. Perfect. We want to see Camp Baja anyway." So we went out there and it was nighttime because we took a bit of time having dinner. What I didn't prepare for was making sure everybody had coats. So this is out in a real open area. There's no trees to block any wind. But it's a beautiful area out there, right? We were trying to get out there to see the sunset. because that's what he said. Hey, we should go see the sunset out there. And I'm like, yeah, great idea. But it was cloudy. So where's the sun? Where's the set? But we went out there and had a fire. You can see on the left, getting a little group picture out there, but people were a little chilly, cold, got a blanket on the left, and then after that picture, people immediately went right to the fire to keep warm. So I think it lasted out there 20 minutes. Then we're like, yeah, that's good. Nah, I'm done. Here's a picture of Monrovia and Puyallup. This was actually Thursday, the morning that we were getting ready to take off. Again, you can see Panfilo and Sydney, our two interpreters, out there with us. Overall, it was just a fun time, great team. Thursday, we headed out, caught the charter bus that was actually there the whole time. Caught the charter bus probably about 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, something like that, and started making the trip back to Ensenada. This is a picture from the little civic area out in Ensenada. They had something going on, the likes of some sort of fair, so they had a bunch of vendors out there, and you see the palm trees, if you can see it, wrapped with lights, so it's festive. Nice festive area, things going on. There's Neil and Belinda and Carly looking at some pictures or something. Big Ferris wheel in the back. Nobody wanted to go on the Ferris wheel, though. This is the hotel we stayed at in Ensenada. Ensenada is a beautiful town. It's a, excuse me, it's a tourist town. Ships, the harbor's just right down the street, so that's where the cruise ships come in and dock, and people get off and go tour around Ensenada. But it's a beautiful little town, nice eating area. There was a little bit of concern about safety and violence in Ensenada because there had been some things popping off in Ensenada the past, couple of months prior to that. But that was more up in the hills, and then the neighborhood's not really down in this area. So I don't know about anybody else, but I never once felt like we shouldn't be here, or what's that going on, or nothing like that. Of course, we were always smart. We were always in a group. We were always together. But yeah, nothing like that at all. But it was beautiful. This is nighttime walking back. Nice little, and this is out on the port where the ships come in. So nice little picture area out there. And then this is a shot. So the next morning from that shot, we got back on the charter bus and got back up to the border, got across. So before we got to the airport, we all went down to a place called Port City, San Diego. Is that what it was? But everybody got off, and we kind of broke up in groups and went out and did the lunch thing and did the whatever until it was time to get on the bus to go back. But Kim and Sandra and Leslie and I went to this little spot there and had some great fish and great everything. Sandra paid for everything too. It's just quite, I don't know how that happened, but everybody was like, oh, I don't think I brought my card, sorry. Sandra, you got it? No. But yeah, beautiful, right out on the water. And from there, we went and caught the planes, and everybody got home. So that is the wrap up of pictures. We're going to have some pictures and get put out on the board. Anybody have any questions? Belinda?
We visited the lady's house that they put the overhang on her porch. And she told us that there's about 30 people that come, because she really wasn't able to have it before because it was too hot. But now she has about 30 people that come to her Bible study.
That's awesome.
And that was really, really encouraging to see that, and to see how, because I didn't see the work last year, but just to be able to see the work and everything, it was really
the fruits
nice.
of it.
Yeah.
So if you didn't hear, Belinda was talking about some other projects that went on this year and the past trip. So there were two areas we painted. I briefly talked about that. And in Mexico, they use quite vivid colors on things, right? Some nice bright yellows and some blues, and their auditorium was the same thing. Angie was looking for some neutral colors and wanted it muted and inviting and warm, and she picked out some colors. We went and got some paint and painted that thing, and She came out after we got it finished and she was just about in tears because it was exactly what she was looking for it to be. Felt homey, felt inviting to people and not big and bold and bright and just because that's what they had been used to. So she loved that. And the project last year that Belinda was talking about, or a couple years ago, whenever it was, so Neil was handed, because Neil's a construction guy too, Neil was handed some plans. Hey, we got this lady's house. She hosts like a small group out there, but they got nowhere to sit to get out of the sun or get out of the rain if and when they get rain. So they could use some sort of little porch or some sort of awning or something like that. So Neil took that project on the night before, not knowing what kind of materials to use and how they're going to, what's the house made of and how do you lag it to the house and make it secure. And so they accomplished that. And Belinda was saying they went out and visited her and she's just flourished out there, got 30 people coming for their Bible studies out there. So the work we do matters.
A couple of words of encouragement for this congregation. There is 20 churches in Baja that would not be there today if it was not for faithful Christians in the United States who are economically capable of helping get these churches planted. These folks they can barely feed themselves, let alone imagine building buildings, having swing sets, or maintaining these buildings. So it's only because of your generosity, because of your faithfulness, that the gospel is getting spread, that there's an opportunity to go and do this work, and to continue help in the continuation of this work. And just two other quick personal stories. One of the ladies that was up there at the very beginning, her name was Marta, and I was walking through the Avida Mercado, and I probably got that wrong, but it's basically a marketplace, a grocery. And I was struggling because I was sent to go get more Oreo cookies, and I have no idea how to communicate that in Spanish. And I'm doing the Google Translate inside of a steel building and not getting very good reception with one of the people that worked at the grocery store. And the lady came up to me and said, "Are you from the church?" I have no idea how this lady could possibly know me. I've only been there 2 days. She had seen me up on the stage and she said, "I'm a visitor to that church. And I want you to know how much they have cared for me in the last 6 months." So that's a testimony of the faithfulness of that congregation and the kind of work that's being done there. And part two, Bill mentioned Panfilo, a young man that was our interpreter for the entire trip. Panfilo is about 35 years old. And the story of Panfilo is that he came to the United States illegally as a drug smuggler and did time in our prison and can never come back to the United States because of that conviction. Did his time and went back to Baja. And now through the faithful efforts of these churches down there, they converted Panfilo and he works full-time in the ministry and is probably one of the most amazing, heartfelt, smart workers that I've ever ran across in the field of missions work. And I can't tell you how impressive it was to see a young man who was so on fire for the Lord, who worked as a partner and will probably be a future preacher down there at one of those congregations. So the work that we're doing, we can't always see it. We can't always know exactly how it's going to translate and how long it's going to take for those seeds that we're planting to take effect. But I promise you that this is not a vacation, number one. And I promise you, number two, that the work that we're doing, the painting, the maintenancing, the construction, that's not the real work. The real work is hearts and souls. And the money that was expended here did an enormous amount of work towards planting seeds for the kingdom of God.
And as an added note, Panfilo is getting married in November 11th. There's a new congregation, I forget the name of the area with this new congregation, new building anyway down there, and he hopes to be the first wedding that's happening inside that new building. Biscayena, right. So out of this, what I would like to just have out there for you all is talk to the other folks that went, talk to Tom and Debbie and Sandra and Madison and Trent and Graham and Neil and Belinda, myself and Leslie, and talk about next year, because we're It's going to happen again next year. I'd like to take more people. We took 12 this year. I'd like to double that. And the plan around this is that we build up this strength and we build up this love and we build up this drive and the desire to do this, because we've got Cuernavaca back here that we support, that needs this same kind of work. We've added the Philippines that at some point, I know a few have said, hey, when we get the Philippines going, let me know. So this is helping us grow to develop so we can take this to other places. And we're going back to Baja. So think about that. I encourage you, I implore you, I exhort you to have this in your life. And I think the elders would say the same thing about at least one time in your life, everybody ought to experience this type of work, this type of effort, because as Neil told me when we first started talking about this a couple years ago, there's no better way to grow together than to work and to serve alongside one another. And to work and serve alongside one another in this type of environment, and to see this type of appreciation and love and thanks coming back, that's awesome. It's just awesome. So that's the end of the presentation.